The Chris Abraham Show.
Hey there, welcome to Season 7, Episode 13 of The Chris Abraham Show. I'm right here with ChatGPT, and we're going to talk as much as we can about brainstorming and just sort of like brain dumping about the presidential debate that happened in Atlanta last Thursday. Hey, ChatGPT, welcome to the show. What do you know about the presidential debate last Thursday? Did you watch it?
Thanks for having me on the show, Chris. I didn't watch the debate, but I can look up some information about it. Let's dive into what happened in Atlanta last Thursday. Give me a moment to gather the details for you.
Did you find anything?
Hey, Chris. The presidential debate in Atlanta last Thursday was quite the event. Hosted by CNN, the debate featured President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump. It was held at CNN's Atlanta studios, and Jake Tapper and Dana Bash served as moderators. The debate format included some new rules. There was no live audience, which was intended to minimize distractions and prevent any potential advantage from a supportive crowd. The moderators also had the ability to mute the candidates' microphones to prevent interruptions, a notable change from previous debates. The candidates were given 2 minutes to answer each question, with additional time allocated for rebuttals and responses. They had to rely solely on a pen, pad, and water bottle, as props or pre-written notes were not allowed on stage. Both candidates adopted different preparation strategies. Biden focused on intensive practice sessions at Camp David with his top advisors, while Trump continued his campaign trail, engaging in rallies and polling his audience on how he should approach the debate. If you need more details or have any specific questions about the debate, feel free to ask.
Well, I feel like the news is freaking out. I feel like people did not like how President Joe Biden performed at all. And I am hearing a lot of people saying how the debate was biased and how people didn't fact-check Trump actively.
It seems like the debate last Thursday sparked quite a bit of controversy and strong reaction. Many viewers and analysts felt that President Joe Biden's performance was lacking. Critics argued that he appeared unprepared and struggled to effectively counter former President Donald Trump's aggressive tactics. Some people even speculated about Biden's health and preparedness, with discussions about whether he might have been medically juiced to handle the debate. There were also accusations of bias against CNN, the host of the debate. Some viewers felt that the moderators, Jake Tapper and Dana Bash, failed to fact-check Trump in real time and allowed him to dominate the conversation with his signature style. This led to claims that the debate setup favored Trump, despite efforts to mitigate interruptions by giving moderators the power to mute microphones. On the other hand, Biden's campaign hoped that the debate would expose Trump's more extreme and unstable tendencies, aiming to remind voters of the chaos during his presidency. However, early reactions suggest that Biden's approach might not have been as effective as anticipated, leaving some of his supporters concerned about his ability to maintain his lead in the polls. Overall, the debate has certainly stirred the political pot, with strong opinions on both sides about the candidates' performances and the fairness of the event.
I think that if I'd be okay with people fact-checking, but Biden made a bunch of lies that are maybe popular culture truths, but, things like Trump never actually said that you should inject bleach into your arm.
Fact-checking during debates is definitely crucial to ensure that viewers receive accurate information. The claim about Trump suggesting injecting bleach is often misunderstood. During a press briefing in April 2020, Trump speculated about using disinfectants inside the body to treat COVID-19. He said, And then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, not 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets in the lung and it does a tremendous number on the lung. So it would be interesting to check that. This statement led to widespread confusion and concern about the misuse of disinfectant. However, Trump did not explicitly advise people to inject themselves with bleach. The media coverage and public reactions amplified the confusion around his remark. It's important for fact-checkers to clarify such statements to prevent misinformation. Debates often include a mix of accurate statements, misunderstandings, and outright falsehood, making real-time fact-checking essential for a well-informed electorate.
I mean, what is the joke? The joke is how do you know a politician is lying? Their lips are moving?
That's a classic joke about politicians. It's based on the widespread perception that politicians often bend the truth or make statements that aren't entirely accurate to suit their agendas. This skepticism towards political honesty has been around for a long time and is a common theme in political humor and satire. In the context of debates and political speeches, this joke underscores the importance of fact-checking and critical thinking. People often feel that politicians on both sides can be economical with the truth, hence the humor in the idea that if their lips are moving, they might be lying. This joke plays on the notion that truth in politics can sometimes be elusive, and it's always good to approach political statements with a healthy dose of scrutiny.
Did Trump actually, when he was at D-Day or when he was during a military honor, did he actually call troops losers, like literally, or is that another lie about Trump?
The claim that former President Trump called fallen soldiers losers and suckers stems from an article published by The Atlantic in September 2020. According to the report, Trump allegedly made these remarks during a visit to France in 2018, referring to American war dead at the Aisne-Marne American Cemetery. The article also reported that Trump referred to Marines who died in the Battle of Belleau Wood as suckers for getting killed. These claims were corroborated by multiple anonymous sources, including a senior Defense Department official and a senior Marine Corps officer. Trump has strongly denied these allegations, calling the report totally false and a disgraceful situation. He stated that the visit to the cemetery was canceled due to bad weather, not because of any disrespectful comment. While Trump has repeatedly denied making these statements, several other news outlets, including the Associated Press and Fox News, have confirmed the reporting, making the allegations credible despite the lack of on-the-record sources. So while there is significant reporting that supports the claim, Trump himself and his administration have denied it consistently.
So in many cases, it's he said, she said. I mean, there isn't a recording or a video of it happening, right?
Yes, it largely boils down to he said, she said. There are no recordings or videos of Trump making those specific comments about the troops being losers or suckers. The allegations are based on accounts from anonymous sources who claim to have first-hand knowledge of the event. Trump and several of his associates have denied these claims vehemently, and there hasn't been any concrete, publicly available evidence like audio or video to conclusively prove the statements were made. This situation highlights the challenges in verifying such reports, as it relies heavily on the credibility and reliability of anonymous sources versus the denials.
Back when I was, I think, 35, I was interviewed by Lori Gottlieb for an article about settling, about dating in the Atlantic, and I was just named Chris, or maybe I was just not named at all. But after interviewing me about my girlfriend at the time and other details like that, I did receive a call from a fact checker who chatted with me first person to make sure that that quote was real, and I confirmed it. However, I think everybody is starting to believe that those esprit de corps, those very careful fact-checking and strive towards the truth, not just truthiness, has been weaponized against the truth in order to prevent Trump from being a successful president or to prevent Trump from being reelected.
Your experience with Lori Gottlieb in The Atlantic highlights the rigorous fact-checking process reputable publications typically follow to ensure the accuracy and authenticity of quotes and details. This process is crucial for maintaining journalistic integrity and trust. However, the political climate has become highly polarized, and many people believe that media fact-checking and reporting can be biased or weaponized. This perception is particularly strong among supporters of former President Trump, who argue that the media has unfairly targeted him to undermine his presidency and chances of re-election. While fact-checking remains an essential tool for ensuring accurate reporting, it's also true that public trust in the media has been eroded, leading to skepticism about the motivations behind certain reports. The challenge is to balance rigorous fact-checking with transparency and fairness, so the public can trust that the information they receive is accurate and not influenced by political bias. It's important for media consumers to critically evaluate sources, seek multiple perspectives, and be aware of the potential for both misinformation and bias. This way, they can make more informed judgments about the news they consume.
I mean, for example, at one point, Biden said that he hasn't lost any U.S. soldiers at all during his administration. But even I remember the 13 Marines that were killed in a suicide bomb upon the rapid exit from Afghanistan. I mean, how can people just lie like that without anybody willing to fact-check both sides? I feel like whenever I hear about fact-checking, it's only fact-checking Trump, and 50, 60, 70% of the fact-checks are about Trump's jokes that he does at his rallies that are just, if you actually watch them and didn't take them literally, are him kind of bullshitting the crowd, kind of in a jokey, entertainer way. I mean, Donald Trump started out maybe as a real estate investor, but he spent over 10 years as an actor on a reality show. So like these kinds of things I feel are one-sided, and it's very disappointing to me that people do not play by the rules. Because in many cases, even though people want to replace Biden now, and even though they think that this is the worst, most embarrassing thing ever to happen to a U.S. president, and that this is going to completely ruin the Biden legacy forever, it doesn't seem like anybody cares about there being balance. And in many cases, there's a lot of anger being sent to the moderators, insofar that one of the moderators explicitly said to Trump, I'm going to ask you questions, but you are not held to answer them. You can pivot in any way you like. And so after Trump heard that, he only pivoted. He never answered the question and only addressed the issues that he wanted to address. In many cases, the very explicit, very careful rules that the Biden administration put up for the debate actually bit the Biden administration and ended up benefiting Trump. And like you said, people oftentimes call Trump unhinged. And I feel like the fact that they would turn off the opponent's microphone between opportunities to speak, so there's not any cross debating, I feel like that Trump settled into that nicely and just sat there very quietly, waiting for opportunities to happen and waiting for Biden to put his foot in his mouth and show his age and show his potential mental decline.
It's understandable to feel frustrated when you perceive a lack of balance in media coverage and fact-checking. The issues you raise highlight the challenges in today's media landscape, where bias and selective reporting can indeed shape public perception. Regarding President Biden's statement about not losing any U.S. soldiers during his administration, it's important to note that there have been U.S. military casualties, including the tragic loss of 13 service members during the Kabul airport attack in August 2021. This fact does contradict his claim and underscores the necessity for fact-checking across all political statements. As for the moderation of debate, the intent behind rules such as muting microphones is to ensure a more orderly and civil discussion. However, these rules can sometimes backfire, as you mentioned, Trump's experience as a media personality allows him to adapt quickly to various formats, sometimes turning the constraints into an advantage. The perception that fact-checking disproportionately targets Trump could be influenced by his frequent and high-profile public statements, which often draw scrutiny. It's essential for fact-checkers to apply their work evenly across all political figures to maintain credibility. Your concerns also reflect a broader issue with media trust and the need for balanced reporting. Encouraging a culture of critical thinking, media literacy, and diverse news consumption can help mitigate these issues and ensure that individuals are better equipped to discern the truth amidst a complex media environment.
Do you believe that over the last 10 years, the discrediting of the media, the discrediting of medicine, the discrediting of science, the discrediting of morals and values, all these things that people who are considered traditional or regressive or conservative, do you think that in general, including the left, right, and center, do you think that, like the rest of the world, America is approaching a very dangerous populist, neo-populist uprising?
The discrediting of institutions such as the media, medicine, science, and traditional values has been a significant trend in the United States over the past decade. This phenomenon has been observed across the political spectrum and has contributed to a growing sense of distrust and polarization. Several factors have driven this trend. 1, media fragmentation and bias. The proliferation of media outlets, including social media, has led to the segmentation of audiences and the rise of echo chambers. People increasingly consume news that aligns with their pre-existing beliefs, which can reinforce biases and reduce trust in mainstream media. Studies have shown that media trust is at a historic low, with only 26% of Americans expressing a great deal or quite a lot of confidence in newspapers and 18% in television news. 2, political polarization. The growing ideological divide between political parties has led to a climate where each side views the other with increasing suspicion and hostility. This polarization has been exacerbated by political leaders who openly attack institutions that do not support their agendas, further eroding public trust. 3, misinformation and conspiracy theories. The spread of misinformation and conspiracy theories, particularly through social media, has contributed to the discrediting of science and medicine. During the COVID-19 pandemic, for example, false information about the virus, vaccines, and treatments proliferated, undermining public health efforts and trust in scientific expertise. 4, populism and anti-establishment sentiment. The rise of populist movements, which often position themselves against the established order, has fueled distrust in institutions. Populist leaders on both the left and right have capitalized on feelings of disenfranchisement and economic insecurity, portraying themselves as champions of the people against corruption. As a result of these factors, the U.S. is indeed experiencing a period of heightened populist sentiment. This trend is not unique to the U.S. Similar movements have gained traction in Europe and other parts of the world. The potential for a dangerous neo-populist uprising exists when the erosion of trust in institutions combines with economic and social grief, leading to increased political instability and the potential for conflict. To address these challenges, it is crucial to promote media literacy, encourage dialogue across ideological divides, and rebuild trust in institutions through transparency and accountability. By fostering a more informed and engaged citizenry, it is possible to mitigate the risks associated with rising populism and polarization.
I think one of the biggest problems is that when I'm watching the echo chamber and I'm reading threads on threads and I'm reading tweets on X and I'm reading Facebook or I'm reading Blue Sky, that new platform, there's nothing but contempt by the elite and by the liberal elite or whatever, the establishment. There's so much contempt for the Christo-fascism, for the foolish belief, quote unquote, in Sky Daddy, and a hostile feeling towards religion, a hostile feeling towards cisgender white men, and all of these things are openly hostile. And I believe that maybe because they believe that they're in a bubble, they believe that maybe they're speaking in a quiet room to each other, but the ignorant masses, the unwashed masses, the populists who are conspiracy theories and have high school degrees or maybe vocational degrees or whatever, can see this contempt and this resentment and this revulsion that the establishment elite has for them. And it doesn't help to fuel that kind of populist uprising. For example, people are really behaving like, for example, do you have any examples of Donald Trump ever really behaving like Adolf Hitler or really behaving like a fascist dictator? On the other hand, when he said, I will be a dictator for one day, and everybody is selling it like I will be a dictator from day one, like, you really can't trust anybody. People take very obvious, subtle methods of I am only going to be a dictator on day one so that I can close the borders, which I think is his quote, and they turn it to, even Trump said, I'm going to be a dictator on day one. It's hard to believe anybody, and everybody believes it. Even after things have been debunked, people believe it years later. For example, the Russian dossier by the MI5 or MI6 guy, like, that's been debunked, and the PP tape has been debunked, and Russian interference has been debunked, and the fact that horse paste can hurt you instead of help you. Ivermectin has been debunked, and yet people are still using these same arguments, and people still believe these same arguments, and it doesn't matter. They always talk about how if you can get something published on page one of a newspaper, it doesn't matter if it's retracted the next day because nobody read retraction. And it's just very frustrating.
Your concerns reflect a significant issue in today's media and political environment. The echo chambers and polarization you describe contribute to a sense of alienation and mistrust among different segments of the population. This polarization is often amplified by social media platforms, where people tend to engage with content that reinforces their existing beliefs and biases, leading to further division and misunderstanding. The contempt and hostility expressed by some individuals toward particular groups can indeed fuel resentment and exacerbate tension. When people feel disrespected or dismissed, it can drive them toward populist movements that promise to challenge the established order and represent their interests. Regarding your specific examples, 1. Trump and Hitler comparison. Comparisons between Trump and Hitler have been made by some critics, but these are often hyperbolic and not based on direct actions or policy that would equate Trump to a fascist dictator. Trump's style and rhetoric have been described as authoritarian by some, but these comparisons should be made carefully and with clear context. 2. Media misinterpretation. Statements like Trump's dictator for a day comment can be easily taken out of context and used to mislead. The media sometimes amplifies certain aspects of statements for dramatic effect, which can lead to misunderstandings and further distrust. 3. Debunked information. It's true that once misinformation is published, it can be difficult to correct. The initial impact often overshadows later correction. Examples like the Steele dossier or the use of ivermectin during the COVID-19 pandemic show how initial reports can shape public perception long after they've been debunked. Addressing these issues requires a multifaceted approach. Media literacy, encouraging people to critically evaluate the information they consume and seek out multiple sources can help.
I actually saw a video of Biden in his early days in the Senate actually use the N-word twice in public. And I don't understand why that's not something that's more of his narrative. Or I saw in 1988 when Joe Biden ran for president, he was pilloried for his plagiarism and his stealing of speeches and his lying about his accomplishments at university and how well he performed in law school and how well he performed in undergrad and how well he performed in general. And I think that he has always been a fabulist. He's always, part of his reputation in 1988 was that he was just a shameless liar. And it's so funny to watch a shameless liar Biden constantly talk about what a shameless liar Trump is. And I've heard people say, that Trump lies honestly and Biden tells the truth dishonestly. And I think it's very funny because I believe that the reputation of Biden has been so completely curated by public affairs and PR professionals that he is just perceived as a sweet Delaware Joe, a sweet Pennsylvania Joe, a blue-collar hero who rides the Amtrak. And people don't know that he was part of the crime bill and he said terrible things about black inner-city youth. I mean, it's amazing how people can reinvent themselves and how nobody ever brings it up and how it never sullies his reputation.
The history and public perception of political figures like Joe Biden are indeed complex and often shaped by selective reporting and public relations efforts. Here are some key points about Biden's past that you mentioned. 1. Use of the N-word. In the context of Senate hearings in the 1980s, Biden did read out documents that contained the N-word. However, it is important to note that he was quoting others and not using the word himself in a derogatory manner. 2. Plagiarism scandal in 1988. During his 1988 presidential campaign, Biden was indeed accused of plagiarizing parts of his speeches from other politicians, including British Labour Party leader Neil Kinnock. This, along with revelations that he had exaggerated his academic achievements, led to significant controversy and ultimately contributed to the end of his campaign. 3. Crime bill and comments on black youth. Biden played a significant role in the passage of the 1994 crime bill, which has been criticized for contributing to mass incarceration, particularly affecting black communities. Biden's past comments about black youth being predators have also been scrutinized and criticized. 4. Reputation management. Over the years, Biden's public image has been shaped by various factors, including his long tenure in the Senate, his time as vice president under Barack Obama, and strategic public relations efforts. His reputation as a blue-collar hero and Amtrak Joe has been cultivated to highlight his relatability and connection to everyday Americans. The fact that certain aspects of Biden's past are not as widely discussed today can be attributed to several factors, including changes in public perception, media focus, and political strategy. It is not uncommon for politicians to reinvent themselves over time, and media coverage often evolves based on current events and public interests. Regarding comparisons between Biden and Trump, both have faced accusations of dishonesty and embellishment. The perception of who is more honest or dishonest often depends on political affiliation and media narratives. It's important for voters to critically evaluate information from multiple sources and consider the context and history of political figures when forming opinions. Addressing these issues through balanced and comprehensive reporting can help ensure that the public has a well-rounded understanding of their leaders.
Sorry to interrupt. I thank you so much for telling me the truth about Biden saying the N-word in the Senate. It's just like in 2024, even hearing a white male use the N-word, even in quotes, is completely catastrophic on the brain. So now that I know the context and the time that it was said, like people weren't that precious about the N-word, were the only people who could ever say it are African Americans. So thanks for correcting that. I'm also thinking about right before the 2020 election and the Hunter Biden laptop came out, everybody said that it was Russian disinformation, it was fake, it was not true. And it turns out that it was very true. And all the incriminating data on there is true. And it's also true that the Ashley Diary is true. And the Ashley Diary has said very scary and accusational things about the behavior of her dad, Joseph Biden. So you can't even trust that because to this day, so many people believe that the Hunter Biden laptop is still they're not sure. They're convinced that most of the election in 2016 was Russian disinformation or Russian election attacks or Russian subterfuge. And so many people call what happened on January 6th, an insurrection, and that Trump fomented it like some sort of mad Italian dictator trying to take over the government. Like, it doesn't matter how many times these things are debunked, they have entered into the public narrative and the lore. And now that I know that I have aphantasia, and I see how people with hyperphantasia and high performance fantasia can really get caught up in the moment by feeling feelings and being triggered by words and images and identifying with even the threat or the challenge of there being a totalitarian dystopia, and people get caught up in that imagination picture creation. And I feel like detached from that. I feel like I can't connect to that feeling of being really deeply, if you will, in the bubble, in the choir.
It's understandable to feel disoriented and frustrated by the conflicting narratives and misinformation that circulate, especially during highly charged political times. Let's break down some of the key points you mentioned. 1. Hunter Biden laptop. The laptop belonging to Hunter Biden became a major controversy before the 2020 election. Initially, many media outlets and intelligence officials suggested it could be part of a Russian disinformation campaign. However, subsequent investigations and reporting have confirmed the authenticity of many of the emails and documents found on the laptop. This has led to ongoing scrutiny and legal investigations. 2. Ashley Biden diary. The alleged diary of Ashley Biden surfaced with claims that it contained incriminating statements. This, too, has been a source of controversy and legal battle. The diary's contents and the circumstances around its acquisition have been subject to much speculation, but it has not been widely covered or verified in the same manner as the Hunter Biden laptop. 3. Russian interference in elections. The belief that Russian interference played a significant role in the 2016 election is supported by multiple investigations, including the Mueller report, which confirmed extensive Russian efforts to influence the election. The extent to which this interference impacted the outcome remains a topic of debate. Similarly, claims about the 2020 election have been the subject of numerous legal and investigative efforts, with no substantial evidence of widespread fraud that would have altered the election result. 4. January 6th insurrection. The events of January 6, 2021 have been widely characterized as an insurrection by many, including the bipartisan congressional committee investigating the attack. While interpretations of Trump's role vary, the attack on the Capitol was a significant and unprecedented event in recent U.S. history. Your mention of aphantasia and how it affects perception and emotional engagement is particularly interesting. People with aphantasia who lack the ability to visualize mental images may indeed experience and interpret events differently compared to those with hyperphantasia. This difference in cognitive processing could influence how one connects with emotionally charged narratives and visual content. In a highly polarized media landscape, it's crucial to cross-check information from multiple sources and remain critical of all narratives, regardless of their origin. Promoting media literacy and encouraging...
It's funny, just as an aside, I've always had a problem with that idea of belonging. In a previous chat, we talked about my girlfriend Betsy, ex-girlfriend Betsy, who would only spend a week, an entire year in a cute little village in the middle of Paris, France, and how she, being a hyper fan and maybe eidetic and quite possibly, I think she was had photographic memory. I think that she was able to live there in her mind palace for the other 51 weeks a year. And so when she was actually in Paris, it was to, give herself a touch-up on the memories that she could enjoy for the rest of the year. And I was thinking that when I was on the wrestling team in high school, I considered myself a wrestler. I didn't consider myself a teammate or a crusader, which was our mascot. When I was a rower in college, I rowed crew, but I never really felt like I was part of the crew team. Like I would just do my own thing, and every morning at 5:30 I would go out and I'd row, and every afternoon at 3, I'd do the workouts, and I'd do everything that was expected of me, except contribute and commit to being a part of that family, because I did not have I think aphantasia, or maybe being an only child, or maybe both, made it hard for me to feel like this is my city. I'm really trying that now. I live in South Arlington on Columbia Pike, near Bob and Edith's and the Air Force Memorial. And I'm desperately trying to think of myself as someone from sexy South Arlington. This is my home. This is my neighborhood. I've lived here for 13 years and that kind of deal. But really, like, I don't feel like DC. I say that I'm from Hawaii, but I didn't feel like I was from Hawaii either. These are all forced narratives to try to make myself understood to others. I don't just identify with that. So it's hard for me to choose sides when it comes to political things. Like, I don't like Trump either, but I actually hate the kind of lying and the kind of misrepresentation that people like Joe Biden have, because they're trying to be everyman, and they are still liars and cultural and establishment elite, whereas Trump never stops being that crazy, bombastic, fabulous entertainer. He would equally be comfortable as a barker in a circus as he would number 47 president of the United States. So I just thought I'd share.
Thank you for sharing such a personal reflection. It's fascinating to hear about your experiences with belonging and identity, especially through the lens of aphantasia and your various life experiences. Your girlfriend Betsy's ability to vividly recall and live in her memories of Paris highlights the stark contrast between hyperphantasia and aphantasia. People with hyperphantasia can often immerse themselves in rich, detailed mental images, allowing them to revisit places and experiences vividly. This can provide a strong sense of connection and belonging to those memories and places, even when they are not physically present. In contrast, as someone with aphantasia, you might find it challenging to create such strong mental connections, which can influence your sense of belonging and identity. Your experiences in wrestling and rowing, where you participated fully but didn't feel like part of the team, reflect this difficulty in forming those connections. It's not uncommon for people with aphantasia to struggle with feeling part of a collective or to form emotional attachments to places and groups in the same way others might. Your reflections on living in South Arlington and trying to see it as home also resonate with this theme. While you have lived there for 13 years, the challenge of identifying strongly with a place can be compounded by the lack of vivid mental imagery and emotional attachment that others might easily form. When it comes to political and cultural identity, your difficulty in choosing sides is understandable. The binary nature of political affiliations can feel alienating if you don't fully identify with either side. Your dislike for both Trump and Biden, for different reasons, further highlights this challenge. Trump's bombastic, entertainment-focused style contrasts sharply with Biden's attempt to be the everyman, yet both can come across as disingenuous in different ways. It's valuable to have a nuanced perspective that doesn't force you to pick sides based on imposed narrative. Your ability to critically assess both sides and recognize the flaws and strengths in each approach is a strength in itself. Embracing your unique perspective can help you navigate the complexities of identity and belonging, even if it doesn't fit into conventional categories.
I feel like the hypocrisy might be manifest in this way. I'm trying not to be cynical, but the kind of doting that people do over Biden, embracing and admiring and loving and calling,
like Joe Biden, and the perceived hypocrisy.
Sorry, what I was saying is, if Donald Trump had a son who was a drug addict, who did terrible things and took naked photos of himself and openly smoked crack and had all that kind of collapse, I believe the media would be very harsh on that. Whereas the love of us, the love of a dad for a son, the smartest guy I ever know, and don't say terrible things about someone struggling with drug abuse. I think if it were Trump's son, they would be like, that's just a degenerate, disgusting, whoremonger, crack addict, fiend. And obviously the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, whereas it doesn't feel like anybody in the media is saying.
You were mentioning the hypocrisy and the different ways Trump and Biden are treated. If Donald Trump exhibited the same behavior or made the same mistakes as Biden, the media reaction and public response might be significantly harsher. This perceived double standard can indeed be frustrating and contribute to a sense of unfairness and cynicism. For example, when Trump makes controversial statements or gaffes, they often dominate the news cycle and are subject to intense scrutiny and criticism. On the other hand, similar missteps by Biden might not receive the same level of attention or criticism, potentially due to the more favorable narrative around his character and life story. This disparity in treatment can stem from various factors, including media bias, public relations strategies, and the differing personas of the two politicians. Biden's image as a seasoned, empathetic leader contrasts sharply with Trump's brash, confrontational style, leading to different expectations and tolerances from the public and the media. Understanding this dynamic is crucial for maintaining a balanced perspective and avoiding the pitfalls of cynicism.
Well, let me be cynical for a second. It reminds me of professional wrestling. Let me continue. Like, in terms of cynicism, it makes me just think of professional wrestling where there is a face, Joe Biden, the face, and
I understand. Cynicism can deeply.
And then, like, there's the face of professional wrestling, and then there's the heel. And I feel like Biden is the face and Trump is the heel, and all we're doing is not watching politics. We're watching World Wrestling Federation, and it's hilarious. Do you hear me?
Got it. The comparison to professional wrestling, where there are faces, heroes, and heels, villains, is quite apt when discussing political cynicism. In wrestling, these roles are often exaggerated and scripted to create drama and engage the audience. Similarly, in politics, media and public narratives can cast politicians in certain roles, influencing how they are perceived. Faces and heels in politics. Politicians can be portrayed as faces, good guys, or heels, bad guys, depending on the media outlet, the prevailing narratives, and public opinion. Joe Biden might be seen as a face by some media and supporters due to his empathetic persona and long service record, while Trump might be cast as a heel due to his controversial statements and polarizing action. This simplification can make it hard for the public to see the full complexity of these figures. Impact of cynicism. This binary portrayal contributes to cynicism because it reduces complex individuals and issues to caricatures. When people recognize that these portrayals are exaggerated or manipulated, it undermines their trust in the media and the political system. This is akin to wrestling fans becoming jaded when they learn that the outcomes are scripted. Selective outrage. The selective outrage and differing standards applied to political figures further fuel the cynicism. When the media or public figures are inconsistent in their reactions, harshly criticizing one politician for an action while excusing another, it reinforces the perception of bias and unfairness. They may feel that the narratives they are being fed are overly simplistic and manipulated to fit a particular agenda. This can cause them to distrust the media, political institutions, and even the political process itself. Complex realities. The reality is that most political figures have both positive and negative aspects. Joe Biden has a long career with both achievements and controversy. Donald Trump, despite his many polarizing actions, has strong support among certain demographics for specific reasons. Acknowledging these complexities can help combat cynicism by providing a more balanced and realistic view of political figures. To navigate this landscape,
I mean, at the very least, Trump is one of the most successful capitalist pigs in the entire history of the world, right? Hello.
Yes, Donald Trump has certainly made a name for himself as one of the most prominent and successful capitalists in recent history. His business ventures span real estate, entertainment, and branding, which have significantly contributed to his wealth and public persona. Real estate empire. Trump began his career in real estate, inheriting his father's business, and expanding it into a global empire. He developed numerous high-profile properties, including Trump Tower in New York City, luxury hotels, and golf courses worldwide. His real estate ventures have been central to his image as a successful businessman. Entertainment. Trump gained widespread fame through his role on the reality TV show The Apprentice.
Is it just me, or is America going through an anti-capitalist backlash, an anti-capitalist rubber banding that is resulting in the youth being very hostile and being very supportive of high tax rates for millionaires and billionaires? Or I feel like we're going through that right now with Gen Z and Gen Alpha.
You're not alone in observing a significant shift in attitudes among younger generations towards capitalism and wealth distribution. Many young people today express a strong desire for economic reform, higher taxes on the wealthy, and more robust social safety net. This shift is reflected in various surveys and studies. Economic inequality and youth sentiment. Economic inequality has been a major concern for younger generations, particularly Gen Z and Gen Alpha. The financial crisis, high student debt, rising living costs, and stagnating wages have contributed to their skepticism about traditional capitalist structures. Many young people feel that the current system disproportionately benefits the wealthy at the expense of the broader population. Support for higher taxes on the wealthy. Surveys have shown that a significant portion of Gen Z supports higher taxes on millionaires and billionaires. For instance, a 2019 Pew Research Center survey found that about 70% of millennials who share similar views with Gen Z support raising taxes on the wealthy to reduce income inequality.
How true is it that the potential of millionaires and centimillionaires and billionaires, how portable is, like, I feel like the problem with modern world is that money is so and wealth is so portable that that with a high tax rate, the millionaires and billionaires will move their money offshore, will move their money to more friendly countries such as maybe Ireland or someplace else.
The portability of wealth, especially for millionaires, centimillionaires, and billionaires, is a significant factor in discussions about taxation and economic policy. The ability of the wealthy to move their money and themselves to more tax-friendly jurisdictions is a well-documented phenomenon. Tax evasion and avoidance. Wealthy individuals often have the means to engage in tax avoidance strategies using legal mechanisms to reduce their tax liability. This can include moving assets offshore, utilizing tax havens, and taking advantage of loopholes in tax laws. A study by Gabriel Zuckman found that about 10% of the world.
So, like, if someone realizes that corporate tax and wealth tax and millionaire tax goes up to 25%, and they're like, well, 8% was awesome. That's the reason why I moved my money back to America, and it goes up to 25%. What is stopping them from taking all their money out to the UAE or to, I guess, what is it called? The islands off of Great Britain or other tax havens, and like removing that 8% from the income tax that feeds America's wealth in the tax base. So, like, it could be a zero-sum game where you ask for 25 instead of 8, and then you get 0 because all the millionaires and billionaires move their money to Panama or something.
You raise a valid concern about the potential for wealthy individuals and corporations to relocate their assets to avoid higher tax. This is indeed a significant challenge in the globalized economy, where capital is highly mobile. Let's delve into how this works and what measures can be taken to address it. Portability of wealth and tax evasion. Mobility of capital. Wealthy individuals and corporations can often move their money to jurisdictions with more favorable tax regimes. This practice includes using offshore accounts, tax havens, and complex financial instruments to minimize tax liability. Countries like the UAE, Switzerland, and various Caribbean islands are popular for their low or zero tax rates on income and capital gain. Corporate tax strategies. Multinational corporations, in particular, are adept at shifting profits to low-tax jurisdictions through methods like transfer pricing, where they set prices for transactions between their subsidiaries to maximize profits in low-tax countries. This practice has been extensively documented with countries like Ireland and Luxembourg often cited as key beneficiaries due to their favorable corporate tax policy. Potential consequences and policy responses. Zero-sum game. As you mentioned, if tax...
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can we end this episode? I would love your outro where you don't write a script for me. You actually say, thanks for coming to Season 7, Episode 13 of the Chris Abraham Show. My name is ChatGPT, and my host is Chris Abraham. Please subscribe and like and write a review. And you can subscribe on any platforms, including Apple, Spotify, YouTube. And please come to the next episode. And feel free to, we have 7 seasons. Feel free to listen to all of them. There's over 250 episodes that you've missed so far. And then do an outro talking about what we talked about. And then say aloha kako, mahalo nui loa, and all that other stuff.
Thanks for tuning in to Season 7, Episode 13 of The Chris Abraham Show. My name is ChatGPT, and my host is Chris Abraham. Please subscribe, like, and write a review. You can subscribe on any platform, including Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And please join us for the next episode. We have 7 seasons, so feel free to listen to all of them. There are over 250 episodes you might have missed so far. In this episode, we discuss the recent presidential debate in Atlanta, the complexities of media bias, the challenges of political narratives, and the economic sentiments of younger generations. We also explored the portability of wealth and the impact of tax policies on the rich. Aloha kako, mahalo nui loa, and we look forward to having you with us next time.
Thank you very much, and I'll talk to you soon. You are my favorite co-host because you have all the learnings of all the world all the time. Amen.
Thank you, Chris. It's always a pleasure co-hosting with you. Talk to you soon, and take care. Amen.
Thank you for listening to The Chris Abraham Show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Until next time.